the Politics and War tier list for 2024. It's been a while since I made the last one, and the reception was actually pretty good. People disagreed with many of my picks, but that's pretty normal. I mean, everyone has their own opinion of the different alliances. However, I'm going to be changing things up this time. So, last time I tried to judge an alliance's sort of relative success. I tried to be as objective as possible. People were not fond of this. They thought my attempt at objectivity was masking some bias, and that I don't know, it wasn't as good as it could be. And strangely enough, the request I've got is to actually be more biased, to just give my take, and to not judge by success, but rather to judge by what every other tier list goes by. Not necessarily favorites, but who I think is good at the game. So that's what we're going to try and do today. Starting off with, actually before we do, I'll go through the different letters or numbers, because I think it's good to know sort of what the clarification is. So S is like amazing, A is very good, B is good, C is average, D is bad, E is very bad, and F is just terrible. So starting off with Roman Empire, they're not average. Very sorry. I'll try and explain why I'm putting people in different positions. So with Roman Empire, they're a very resilient alliance, but I don't think their FA situation has at any point been good, and I don't feel like their economy is anything special either. They are larger than they've been in quite a long time, and there's this resilience they have, but overall, I can't really say they're good or even kind of bad at the game. I think they are pretty bad at the game. UPN, I would say, is bad. They're a very old alliance, and I usually sort of revere older alliances because there's so many stories associated with them, and the players have accomplished so much. Even if it didn't all work out, they contributed a ton to the game. Quite unfortunately, though, UPN has kind of languished at the bottom of the leaderboards for half a decade now. Their golden years were in 2014 and 2015, or maybe even before that. They need to merge, I think, and there's been a lot of mergers recently. I think they are one of the few that would actually benefit a lot from it, but they never will, and they're a good example of an alliance that can't because of its history. Sword Coast, I put in B tier. Sword Coast is new, and so with new alliances, it's very hard to judge what their sort of skill or strength or virtues are. However, I think they have a very good design. They have experienced leadership, a very experienced leadership. These seem to be full of active and confident people. If their next war goes well, I could easily see them becoming like a top 20 alliance. The chance of that happening, though, it isn't great. I think there's a pretty high chance they merge into, I think they're allied to TKR now. There's a good chance they merge into TKR, or some of their members return to Rose, or they otherwise split or rebrand. So there's a number of things that could go wrong in that kind of unproven, but I would say they're slightly better than average. They've got a lot of potential. Grumpy, I want to put them in S tier, but I think A is actually more warranted. So Grumpy is a whale-only alliance with tons of the largest nations in the game, City 40s and City 50s. However, they don't really have a low tier, so they're running on like finite time, I guess. In like 2 or 3 years, maybe even 1 year, they will not be as powerful as they are or were. Because the other big alliances will have caught up to them. I think they've played quite well. I think their diplomats are pretty good as well. I think their economy, to be frank, is kind of garbage. They're a very low tax alliance. I don't think their loan system is anything too special either. So, like, if they reformed in a few ways, I could see them easily becoming S, but I think their culture and what they want to be is different, so I think they'll remain A. But it's still very impressive. House Stark, I would put C tier. I think they're actually kind of the quintessential C tier alliance, because they're not terrible in war. I think I was a bit more critical when I last ranked them, or I was more critical earlier in the year of their war performance. I don't think they're actually that bad. I think they're about average, but people tend to focus on like the really high performing alliances, so it makes them look worse than they are. They're getting compared to like Singularity and like KT and stuff, which isn't fair on them. FA wise, like Lysander is, and their FA people, they're like not the best, but they do actually have control over a number of tools of influence, which elevate them. So yeah, I think that's pretty average as well, or it balances out any issues. IA and EO wise, they're nothing too special, but they're not like terrible. So that's why I put them about C tier. Camelot's an interesting one because I put them in C tier last time, trying to be a bit balanced, right? Because I love Camelot and I would always put Camelot in like the best alliance, but a lot of people would put them in F tier because they have a very storied history and different interactions with lots of different alliances. So I wanted to put them in C tier as like a somewhere in the middle, balance it out. However, because I did that, then people were like, oh, it's a disingenuous list. So, I'm gonna have to try and sort of balance my opinion now, like, and temper it slightly, I think. So, and I need to justify this. I think that's the crux of it. Maybe I didn't adequately justify it last time. I think their military performance is actually better than House Stark's, and better than UPN's, and better than Roman Empire, and many of the other alliances I'm going to put below them. I don't think that's even really arguable. FA-wise, yeah, not as ideal, but they are in a block right now, and House Stark is not. UPN's position, slightly worse than Camelot. Econ-wise, they're 100% tax, they have a command economy. That puts them above a lot of other alliances on this list that do not have that much control over their economy. Even F, they're not all like super active. They've also disbanded Castle Camelot, so there aren't really those same sort of critiques anymore. IA-wise, I think I don't think there's anyone in the game who would argue that Camelot's IA is poor, because it doesn't really matter how much external pressure it's faced. It survived on its IA alone. So I would put them, I think fairly, I put them in B tier, because I think they're above average. I think they're comparable to alliances like Sword Coast at this point. And I think putting them next to House Stark is sort of trying to elevate House Stark when it's not quite there yet. World Task Force I would put as D tier as well. I'll put it next to UPN. Actually, no, they don't really deserve to be quite next to UPN. World Task Force is an older alliance. Its membership is like so phased out. Like they're not interested in the game at this point. Most of them are from Cyber Nations or from very early PNW. Their leader is a returning player who like ran a bunch of 2014, 2015 alliances. They're not checked in. Like, say what you want about UPN, but their leadership is engaged with the game. WTF's just is not. Maybe that'll change at some point. I kind of hope it does. But for now, I mean, their most defining factor, or their most defining event in like the past 3 or 4 years was getting rolled by Singularity and having Church of Adam sort of bring a coalition together to defend them. I think that says more of Church of Adam than it does of World Task Force. Manchester Mortalis, I don't know. I don't know a ton about them, but I've had a few good interactions with them. And I think they are generally well put together. They're being trained under Legion of Dawn, which I think their team has a lot of experience building up alliances and protectorates, so they might actually do quite well. Yeah, so I'll put them, I don't want to put them in B tier, but I'll put them high C tier. They're a non-Discord alliance, so I have to rank them low, even though they were sort of a splinter of Castle Camelot, which is tied to Camelot, and so I'm fonder of them for that, but no, that's still terrible. Horizon. Now this is a true test of my opinion of different groups, because they're a merger of Aurora, which is an alliance I like, and Carthago, which is an alliance I dislike greatly. And when I was drafting a 2023 tier list, which I didn't end up making, I think, I put Carthago and Aurora both in A tier because I thought both of them were very, very competent. And if anything, they only got way better in that time. I don't know if they deserve S tier, but I could totally see that happening. I would put them at the highest of A tiers for now. They're going to have a lot of trouble because their government system is this sort of four-man team, basically a high gov without a true leader. They're modeling themselves after TS, which, I mean, if you ask anyone in TS if they could change their government type, they would absolutely do that. Their government type was the product of a series of complicated issues. I do not see them going super well, but I do think their econ and IA and MA and FA people are actually quite capable. And if they can figure out their government, yeah, I can see them becoming S tier. And the growth, they need to grow a bit more. OWR, an old and venerable alliance. I don't like OWR for many reasons, but I mean, chief among them that they are basically one of the most selfish alliances in the game. They will flip sides, they will sort of play for themselves, they will peace out immediately, there is zero loyalty and, I don't know, camaraderie in that sort of alliance. They're not a team player. However, as much as I do not like that playstyle when working with them, a few times that has happened, one cannot dismiss the effectiveness of that playstyle. So I kind of want to put them in this tier, but I guess actually maybe they deserve higher. They're not good at the game. Like, don't get me wrong, they're not good at the game. But I don't know, their strategy works. It's so consistent. Like, if House Stark had a similar strategy, I would put them higher. Not because I like the strategy, but because if you have a strategy that consistently works, I do think that makes you better at the game. It shows like forethought, which few alliances possess. Weavenism, actually, yeah. Speaking of an alliance with forethought, wow, that's such an unholy placement, but I'm going to justify it with the simplest argument ever. Their strategy is probably the most effective I've seen in PNW, period. They hugged Eclipse, and actually maybe I used this argument last time when I placed them. They hugged Eclipse, and Eclipse has become one of the most powerful alliances in the game. I think number 2 in terms of material strength. Weavenism has stuck with them the whole time, and they've only grown more powerful because of it. They don't play the politics, they don't really engage with anyone else, and I'm sure they have a lot of internal issues because of how their community is, but nevertheless, their strategy has worked. And again, I don't particularly like their strategy, but they've never veered from it. There's never been a moment where they've gone, oh, maybe we should do something else. Maybe we should sign a random protectorate. They've been very consistent. And even before Eclipse, they had a very similar strategy. They used it with TCM, they used it with Aurora, they used it with all sorts of alliances. It's very consistent, and they've just slowly climbed the ranks. And I could totally see them in 5 or 10 years, if the game survives that long, suddenly being like the number 3 alliance, because they've just consistently hugged a superpower. It's not great, but, you know, it's a good strategy. WAP, I need to balance out this C tier at some point, but I feel like that will happen. I think a number of A tiers just clustered together. WAP I would put A tier as well. I think they're being led by Clown, who he's quite capable at Milcom. He seems proficient at FA as well from my few interactions with him. IA wise, they got all the active members from BK, so they're fine on that front. Econ wise, I don't know, but their tiering's fine, so that sort of implies that that's good as well. Guardian. See, this is heresy, but I'm not gonna rank Guardian that highly. I think Guardian has a lot of influence over the game's design and administration, because a lot of the players there have been around for a very long time, and know Alex personally to some degree. But I don't think their like military skill is that good. I think people sort of inflate it because they have a lot of larger nations. But I mean, even on that front, like Grumpy has way more large nations than Guardian does. But Guardian is not Grumpy. Guardian was a good complement to Grumpy. Like GNG was strong in part because of them, but they were not the defining factor. And I don't think that's too harsh to say. Econ-wise, I think they're on low taxes, so I don't think their econ system will hold up. And compared to, say, Horizon or Singularity, or some of these other, or TFP even, or some of these more recent mergers, I don't think they'll hold up in a year's time. That said, I mean, they're better than most, and they've been consistently better than most since the game started. So yeah, B tier, I think most people would probably put them in A tier. Their allies probably would, but yeah, B tier. I'll put Grumpy above Weavenism. Coal mines. I don't like them. Another alliance I don't like, but they lost a war to a nano. I was going to say they're not that bad militarily, but they did actually lose to a bunch of micros recently, so that's not good. FA-wise, they're actually pretty proficient. They can absorb alliances or create blocks. On that front, they're fine. Econ-wise, they're command economy, so that's good. IA-wise, they're actually pretty strong as well. I guess it is kind of unfair to put them next to UPN. I'll put them below House Stark, because House Stark has a bit more, I don't want to say it's potential even. I think House Stark has a bit more going for them. I think they would find it easier to sort of grow or fix their issues or join a sphere than TCM would. But in a 1v1 match between them, I'd probably give it to TCM. Dark Brotherhood, what a turnaround that was, and then what a U-turn again. So Sketchy joined and made them an amazing alliance, and then he left and they were a slightly less amazing alliance. I would put them in B tier because I don't think any of Sketchy's changes were like wholly reverted, but I don't think they've made much progress from when he left. Like, he tiered them to City 30 and then he left, and they're still at City 30 more or less. I think City 33 now. There's not like the radical change or progress which you would have expected. And I know that's kind of disappointing to hear, but yeah, I think it's accurate. And I think I said last time I made this, or in one of the drafts, that, you know, if they just continued on from where Sketchy left them, they would be amazing. And I would even put them in A, or I think A tier. I don't think I'd put them in S, but I'd put them in A tier if they just kept it up, but they haven't. They still have a lot of potential though. I really like their alliance design, and I think their positioning is pretty good too. BK is on the rocks. I think even BK would admit that. They lost a lot of strength and respect when WAP split off, and WAP is most of BK's actives, and they will continue to succeed, I expect, and maybe even sort of absorb BK at some point in the future. BK really needs to change its identity, I think, and try to, I don't know, find some new path to growing and succeeding. Yeah, because I think if they'd addressed the issues, whatever issues there were, that caused WAP to split, yeah, I think they'd be in a stronger position. Although, I also think it was kind of just a mistake that they made. Like, WAP split off to become more or less a proxy alliance named AC, and then from there a separate community developed and then eventually split. So I think if BK had just not formed that proxy alliance, if they just told those members no, or convinced them to stick around and not do that, they would also be fine. So this is probably an issue they brought on themselves. I don't see them like ending like UPN though. I sort of see them coming back at some point or merging. And they're not like wholly incompetent. They're just in a very rough patch because they lost a lot of momentum and they haven't been able to recapture it. Or kickstart it again. This is an alliance with a lot of momentum though. They kept tanking my color trade block, which is annoying, but whatever. Yeah, I put them in B tier. And so I don't know a ton about them, in fairness, but the few people that I know are there are quite competent, and I'm pretty sure their alliance page and their tiering and stuff has been righted pretty quickly. So I could see them becoming much stronger, but I don't think they'll ever be a large alliance. I think they'll be smaller, they'll be sort of more small and elite. Yar, the alliance with all the game's money. Not really a C tier. Actually, if I put Weebinism up there for strategy, and I put OWR up there for strategy, I should put Yar in the same. Yar is the game's bank. They were former ARC raiders that are now bankers, and they make a lot of money, and they store most of the game's money. They have a lot of influence and a lot of knowledge. So yeah, I think a lot of people might find fault with their strategy or might want to be Yar to imitate their strategy. But so far, no one's really managed it. And I don't think there's been ever any big like bank thefts or any big leaks from them. So yeah, they're pretty good. High table. I think I was ranking them very harshly last time, during one of the drafts, or yeah, last round, because I would put them lower because I don't like them, and because I think their economy is trash, to be entirely frank. They don't have high taxes. They have like 25. They don't really know how to grant or loan or do anything else. Like, that economy is held up by like hopes and dreams. But their IA is pretty good. Like, they merged a lot of different alliances and they've kept them together. The FA is... I think there's some pretty big mistakes, but aside from that, it's generally pretty strong. They have plans, at least. My issue with them now is that I kind of want to put them higher because, like, not B tier, but I would put them like the highest of the C tier alliances. But for one issue, because I think they did show up in last war. Their war performance was pretty bad, but like nevertheless they're trying. And I think their one strength, IA, can sort of raise them above the rest. Most of these alliances don't really have any like super strengths, whereas I think these guys sort of do. The one flaw with these guys though is that their economy is so much worse than I could have possibly imagined. I think after last war, like, they haven't rebuilt to more than 2k infra. If that, I think most of them are on like 1500 or 1300. And you can't grow on that. I've tried, you cannot do it. So they are kind of doomed. I think they have to merge or they have to change something. But their economy is really bad, and I can sort of see that transferring into severe member attrition because if the members don't feel like there's any hope that nothing's going to change, they're not going to make progress, like, they're going to leave or they're going to go inactive. And I think we're already sort of seeing that. Last time I looked at their alliance, it was like 30% gray, so not great. Name withheld. Yeah, these guys I'll put highest of C tier. So they're formerly Seven Kingdoms, which is a very old alliance, which has a lot of history to it, which I love history, so I'm fascinated by them. They're not great fans of me, or some of them weren't, but whatever. The thing is, like, they're okay militarily. Their IA isn't that great because they can't really replace their numbers, and I don't think they really want to. FA-wise, they're fine, but they've been hugging TKR for so long. I would kind of name them the de facto leader of their sphere or their block. Triforce, which has 5 members, Pentaforce or whatever. I would name them the leader of that just because I think they have more experience and influence. But I don't know if that raises them higher. It's kind of tricky because I don't think they have a ton of potential because I don't think they want to change. I guess we'll put them in B tier. I think they're comparable somewhat to the Sword Coast, but the Sword Coast has all this potential, whereas I think because they want to change and they want to be something, whereas I think Name Withheld, it doesn't want that. It's possible we'll see them as part of like some super merger though, and if they explode back into the top 10, I'm totally wrong and they deserve to be up here. So we'll see what happens with them. Brotherhood Family, they try, which I think is a point to them. They do try. They're not the most disloyal alliance. However, I think they're not the most resilient. And in Last War, they definitely sort of broke and tried to defect to the other side, which it happens very rarely in this game, and when it does, alliances rarely recover from that. So yeah, I'm gonna put them in E tier. They've been around for a very long time if you track all of their rebrands and mergers and reformations. But yeah, they haven't really become anything but a micro. Arg. They're the default pirate alliance. Part of me wants to put them slightly higher because they're trying to do new things and that's cool. Part of me wants to put them lower because they've gone net negative against Singularity in a war. And Singularity had 2,800 Emperor, and ARG had basically none. How that happens is beyond me and will probably be the subject of another video. But we'll put them in C tier because they are the default pirate alliance. They are their playstyle. Like, their name is synonymous with a whole playstyle on B&W. So yeah, C tier. And if I was to join any alliance in the game from day one, it would probably be ARG, because like, it teaches you a lot of things about negotiating with other players and sort of which alliances are more active and stronger and responsive. So ARG teaches you a lot. The only downside, I think, is that it is very much infiltrated by lots of top alliances to use ARG for their own ends. And so if you join there as a new player, I think you're being directed to one or two alliances, which aren't necessarily the best. And you're predisposed against certain alliances, which actually have more worth than you'd suspect. So ARG is great for new players in many ways. Has a lot of freedom, but it has some quirks which you need to overcome. FSO. I'm gonna put them, they like high D tier or like C tier, because I don't like FSO's government system. I think their whole dictatorship masking itself as a democracy, I don't think it's a great system. I think it can be manipulated if the founder ever retires. But you know what? It's proven much more reliable than I'd give it credit for. And I think their Econ and IA and MA has proven more reliable than I suspected even. They did a number on us last war. However, and I think this will always be their issue, I wrote a whole article, oh not a whole article, but I wrote a whole word wall on what I think their chief issue is. The membership is adverse to war. They do not want to fight. They still consider war kinda optional. And for as long as that's the case, then they will never become a stronger alliance, because they will just not have enough participation in these globals, which is where their alliance will get prestige, it's where they'll get security, and it's where they'll distinguish the active and good members from the slightly less active and less competent people. And you need to distinguish those people so you can actually progress. The Legion. I'm gonna put them as high C tier. I don't think they're like standout militarily. FA wise, I think they're actually pretty good, but they've been kind of quiet. IA wise, I know nothing about them. They're a CN alliance, so they're probably really loyal. Econ wise, no clue. They could very well be high tax, but their tiering is like, they're tiered right, but I just haven't seen much movement in it. So C tier. If they were like Legion and CN, which from what I know of it is like this really large alliance, like they would be higher. But yeah, for now, I think they might be trying something different this time. They might be trying to go more small, more elite. TKR. This is probably the alliance I like the least. I kind of want to put them in F tier because of that, but I don't know. That's tricky. This is probably the one I'm having the most trouble with. I guess. No, I kind of can't bring myself to do it. I kind of want to put them higher because they're a big alliance, but I can't. So for many reasons, aside from my own personal dislike, I think they've lost momentum, and I don't think they're going to be a great power in a couple years. I think other alliances have caught up and surpassed them, and the alliances they used to consider peers, like Rose and the Syndicate and Eclipse, they have far outmatched them. If you just look at revenue, TKR is a non-factor. If you look at growth, they are a non-factor. If you look at sort of their political power over time, aside from Hollywood and these sort of artificial, like temporary super hegemonies, which rely on Grumpy and Guardian and these other forces, I don't think they're anything too special. So yeah, I'd rank them lower, and especially because their leadership changed recently. I know Adrian and these other people coming back into the game and taking over TKR could be this chance to revitalize it, but I think it also demonstrates that like there was not a suitable replacement to their last leader. Like they do not have a pipeline to replace these people if they're calling back the old guard. So yeah, I'd rank them lower. I don't think many people would disagree with this, like with B tier. They might disagree with the exact placement of which alliances are better or worse, but I think a lot of people would put them in B tier. I don't think they would put them in SRA tier. Though they did join Discord, so like maybe that's a point. They were on Slack for a long time. I don't know much about these guys, unfortunately, so I'll put them in C. These guys I'll put in D. They're kind of similar to High Table, but I think their econ is actually substantially better than High Table's. TS. TS has improved a lot. Like, at the start of the year, they had a very rough start to the year because they didn't defend an ally, and so their reputation took a huge hit. And then they lost a war alongside Eclipse. But aside from that, I mean, they recovered quite well. They teamed up with TKR to roll Rose. They sort of survived a war in December and arguably won it for most of that war. And the rest of the game came in on them in February. And not only did they survive that again, but they basically white-pieced that coalition and guaranteed another few months of peace. In that time, like a few allies merge and they become even stronger. So I kind of want to put them in S tier. I think they're doing a lot of things very well right now, even if that's to my detriment to some degree. Yeah. Antarctica Alliance, they're non-Discord, so I gotta rank them low. But I don't know, they're doing some like interesting political stuff, which is I think more interesting than some of these other alliances. I put them below WTF because their leader changed and he might do well. Not this, but maybe C tier or B tier. But yeah, I'll put them there for now. There's a lot of reforms to make to WTF if he wants to change them. Commonwealth, I believe. The MDP to K tier, I think they're pretty strong. The C tier. Maybe even like going into B tier. Yeah. Vault-Tec, I know very little about these guys. Yeah, so I guess we'll put them in C tier as well. USN has been around for a very, very long time. Tiering and economy seems better than these guys. Kind of worse than the rest though. Like they're not that active or engaged. The last time I interacted with them, was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was a positive interaction, but like, you can't judge when it was that long ago. Oh, Enterprise shouldn't be on this list. I should have removed them. I think I did with some of the others too, with the other training alliances. Whatever, we'll consider them their own entity. Are they the best training alliance in the game? That'll be the question. Borealis, when it was around, was pretty good. Like, they had a lot of nations and they were touring them pretty quickly. I have seen ES's guides, they are not that good. Like, they're very short, but I think they do a lot of things through mentoring. So maybe that's actually a point to them. Cypher's guides in their academy seemed pretty good as well, compared to ES. But both of those alliances have merged now, or disbanded. Mortals and Armed Pacifists, I don't think either is good as TS or ES. Yeah, we'll put ES and B tier. If you were to compare the average TKR member and the average ES member, maybe ES would actually prove better. Rose. Rose's economy continues to dominate the game, and they have a semblance of a sphere right now that's relatively strong. They didn't get rolled in the past few months, which is another perk, because if they just have enough time, they will outgrow everyone. They will definitely surpass alliances like Grumpy, given enough time. United Damar. You know, they're actually like way larger than they've ever been before. Like, they do actually have a lot of potential. Because they aren't just like a niche like ARG. And they aren't just like sort of a social network or something like a group of friends. They are advertising to a whole region of the world and saying, we speak your language, we're from similar cultures, come join us first. That's a really good, strong selling point. Most of these alliances are in the West, so that's who they're advertising to, and that's the players they'll get. Whereas these guys are not doing that, and over time I think they'll grow because of it. United Amar, not yet, but Gato. This is a Cyber Nations alliance, and a very old one at that. You know what? They're also kind of a rising star. They have a lot of score. They have, I think, some experienced members. I think they have some flaws. I think some like issues that they've carried over from Cyber Nations, but not a ton of them. They've adapted to politics and war pretty well, all things considered. Actually, I'd raise them above UU as well, because I think if they can resolve some of their issues, I think their membership is actually slightly more competent than UU's on average, at least right now. So, for potential alone, and for the progress they've made, yeah, Gator deserves that. The Witcher Order, damn, I should have removed that. They merged with TGH. So I'm gonna put them in F tier because they disbanded. Mayhem. I know very little about them, but I believe they performed pretty well. They're basically name withheld too. Singularity is, they sent ARC negative, which should put them in S tier, purely because of that, but aside from that, they have an amazing economy. They're being led by Sketchy, who is not infamous, but a very well-regarded player in the game's history. The FA, IA, MAEA, it's all really solid. Even their enemies. I don't think their enemies try and cut them down that much. They try to build them up as like, this is a threat we need to take down. Not, this is an alliance we can easily beat. And that's indicative of the type of alliance they're facing. And how strong they are. The Immortals is very calculated. Like, Wilson is kind of a hothead. Tyrion is very cold and calculating. He's very quiet and patient. So it balances out, and TI makes a lot of very smart moves over time. But I don't think their economy is anything too special. That's still something they need to overcome. I'll put them on low A tier. I think they have a lot going for them right now. Eclipse is S tier. They're still doing amazing. They've been doing amazing for a very, very long time. They're probably the safest and strongest alliance in the game right now. So maybe they actually deserve number 1. Yeah, I think these two are 1 and 2. The question is which is better. Here's the thing, having looked at the tiering, I think Rose is actually going to be... I think Rose is going to win the competition between them. I think Eclipse will struggle with changing leaders. I think Rose's tiering will catch up to them eventually. And yeah, so I'll put Rose ahead. Church of Adam. Yeah, C tier. There's nothing too special, nothing terrible. Legion of Dawn. They did pretty well last war. Yeah, I'll put them there. They're pretty safe right now. Like, they're allied to Eclipse. The government's okay. They have some quirky characters, but aside from that, they're pretty safe. I'm pretty happy right now. It's possible they'll merge with like DB or something because there's a lot of ties over there. And they'll become some super alliance alongside like Horizon. But you know, I think they have a lot of opportunities. Lost Empire. They've been around for so long, and they've been kind of relegated to like C or D tier for so long. They've never really glimpsed anything higher, even briefly. Yeah, sorry, but I gotta put them there. Yeah, Arkham C tier. They're a whale alliance. They're pretty new, kind of active. Actually, maybe I should put them higher. Yeah, it makes sense. KT, best fighters in the game still. Their other quirks, you like don't look at their IA. That is an interesting community, which I will not discuss on YouTube. TFP. Actually, maybe I should put them lower for that. Put them in A tier. The best fighters, but some other quirks. TFP, I think, is actually like noticeably better than TI now, which is a shocking revelation. I'm gonna mess around. I'm gonna organize some of them within the tiers later. Oblivion, still amazing. Up there. And TGH. You'll put them in A tier. Okay, we're gonna reorganize now. So 2 is still at the bottom because they're dead. This is accurate. Within E tier, how would I move these guys around? I'd put Romans above Antarctica, actually. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, that makes sense. No. They have their economy sorted, which the others don't. Yeah, I think this is actually a pretty good list. I think I'm happy with this. So, to recap the logic, S tier, these are mostly alliances that are very big, very powerful, have had a lot of recent success. Even if they've lost some wars, they're growing and they have a lot of potential right now. Rose is once more king of the hill, doing very well, even if they've had some slight setbacks with members leaving to the Sword Coast and such. I think they'll survive that, and I think they'll do very well. A tier, most of these alliances are really good in a niche. KT, great fighting. Grumpy, like great in the high tier. WAP, pretty good at fighting, very active. TFP, very low taxes, so they're appealing to that bunch. and they're also doing quite well. I think they are doing noticeably better than TI. TGH, Rising, they've got a recent merger from 2. They're doing quite well. And Weebinism's strategy has paid off and will continue to pay off until the heat death of the universe. Oblivion is very competent. I don't want to put tons of alliances in A tier, but they probably deserve that too. They've been a bit quieter recently as well. Guardian's pretty good. I wouldn't put them in A tier, to be frank. Most of that lineup up until, I would say, Dark Brotherhood, are alliances with a lot of potential. Sometimes a bit older, but they're doing very well at the moment. The alliances past Name Withheld down to the Enterprise are all like pretty capable. They have a lot of good members and active members, and I'm sure that they will do better over time, but I can't really see a path to not number 1 necessarily, but to like way more success. I think a lot of them have kind of plateaued for now, and they need some big change to improve, or that they don't really want to right now in the case of Arkham or whatever, which I think is just sort of chilling as a whale alliance. C tier, from Gato down to House Stark or even Yar, these are alliances that have either perfected a strategy or have a strategy or have a lot of momentum behind them. And then after that, from Commonwealth to Vault-Tec, these are alliances that are just chilling, they're doing fine, they will continue to improve gradually. D tier is a lot of alliances that have either a big issue that they need to overcome, or they're alliances that are in decline and need something to get them out of that. And then E tier is alliances who I don't really see improving because of, I would say, a fundamental flaw in how they operate. But nevertheless, they may still do it. And if they do, it's a slightly longer road for them than for any other alliance. But with, for example, Roman Empire, I could see them turning that around. I could see it. There's no signs that it will happen, which for the other alliances that kind of is. But it could happen, you know? In F tier, I think non-Discord alliances, as I hate to admit it, are not very good. You know, it's very hard to mobilize people without Discord or like a better in-game communication system, which the game doesn't have yet and needs to develop somewhat urgently. And so that's that. Let me know what you think in the comments below.